Welcome to Running It Back, the playoff scenario edition. Mike Palmer here, joined as always by Tarlin Ray. Tarlin, how are you feeling right now?
Excited for the playoffs.
Playoffs.
This is unbelievable. Playoffs?
Yeah.
Unbelievable basketball.
Yeah.
Now, it's even better. It's even sweeter because the Lakers are still with a chance to win.
Full disclosure, you are a Lakers fan.
Correct. Just want to make sure I'm on record. Never a Clippers fan, not on that bandwagon.
Right.
And also amazing to see that the Lakers, despite losing someone as talented as Avery Bradley, were able to still keep it together.
Yeah.
Even the Milwaukee Bucks are the paper tigers.
Bring some
Milwaukee Bucks, the paper tigers of this league.
Some veteran talent on that Lakers bench, showing that there's playoff Rondo and there's even playoff Dwight Howard has been making a few appearances. So interesting stuff as a Laker fan. Yeah, and then the Nuggets Cinderella story ×2. Could it be Cinderella story ×3? We'll explore that scenario. There's less likely, but maybe a couple things could happen that way. Then you got Jimmy Buckets, but it's not even about Jimmy Buckets. It's about Hero Ball, right? Tyler Hero Ball.
I think it's about at any point, Jimmy Buckets as a star gives room for anyone to be a star on a given night.
Plenty to talk about, and I have a feeling we may come back to the Jimmy Buckets team dynamics conversations, Hero Ball, Pat Riley connections. We may run it back in that direction as well. And then lastly, Cinderella scenario, leprechauns are lucky. Could the Celtics, nobody put baby in a corner, we're down 3-1. Now it's time to gel, gentlemen. Marcus Smart. Keith Smart, also basketball trivia. Sometimes a correct answer.
Big jumper for Indiana.
Big shot back in. Maybe we'll figure out how that comes into play. But the Celtics scenarios, pretty unlikely, but that series has been a toss-up. How many times is it going to be heads? Heads I win, tails you lose. Could the Celtics run off a couple here? Who knows? So we're going to do a Punnett Square. It's going to be a short conversation here, Tarlin. I hear on the Spotify and with the kids today, with the TikToks, they like short episodes.
All right, let's go fast.
So here we go, 2x2. Where do you want to start?
You go.
All right, so we're going to talk about the Lakers, right?
Yep.
The Lakers are playing the Nuggets up 3-1. The likely scenario is that the Lakers win. That's it.
And it's a likely scenario for anyone that watched Game 4.
Yeah.
They might have seen first AD get basically punched in the ribs. He was fine, but have a bad sprain of his ankle. So it depends on how AD comes back. He was able to finish the game because he never sat down.
Paul Pierce's wheelchair was available.
It was. We saw him pull it out. Actually, he's more tricked out these days. So
there's all sorts of narratives about how hurt
I think the Lakers win.
Lakers are, but the Lakers are probably going to win that series, in which case they'll most likely play the Miami Heat. So if it's a 2x2, Lakers Heat, most likely scenario, we should talk about that one first. Then we got Lakers-Celtics. Miracle scenario, Adam Silver is over the moon. Ice Cube is able to finally call Mark Wahlberg back and say, let's go. It's go time. So like this Lakers-Celtics, all sorts of stuff to run it back to. Those are the two flavors of Lakers win. And then we'll pick up with the Nuggz win just to round it out. The two really unlikely scenarios, Nuggz-Heat and Nuggz-Celtics. But I think the Lakers, leading off with the Lakers scenarios makes sense to me. Which one do you want to go with first?
So let's go Lakers-Heat first.
Yeah.
If you're going matchups, problem with the current series for the Nuggets, no one can guard AD.
Mm-hmm.
Bam is a problem.
Yeah.
Bam potentially can actually match with AD across the board. And what the challenge then is for the Lakers is they run such a fluid and freewheeling offense that there isn't a single play the ball stops with.
Yeah.
I think the Lakers defensively will have a hard time guarding the Heat.
Yeah.
So it almost takes the Javal, McGee, Dwights, they have less of an impact unless Olenek comes in.
Right.
So I think it's a scary matchup.
So it may be an interesting series, and we'll see how it plays forward. But in terms of that scenario, where do we run it back? So Lakers versus the Heat. what are some things to run it back to? I mentioned Pat Riley, right? So this is probably the first thing that comes to mind, Pat Riley and his historic move, Lakers to a little team called the New York Knickerbockers.
And then he realized he was in jail. He needs to get out of there.
Then he decided to take his talents to South Beach and won the 2004 NBA Finals with young Dwayne Wade, Flash, to one Shaquille O'Neal, Superman. Sorry, Dwight Howard. 2004, Riley brings it there. Then he brings LeBron back. Plenty of scenarios to run back around how that relates to what's going on now. Lots of stories there, man. So if that happens, the most likely outcome, plenty of angles, plenty of directions to run it back. Where else any other connections come to mind?
But when you think about the way those other teams are constructed, this is a Cinderella team that went and tried to have big splash free agents.
Yeah.
Jimmy Buckets was no one really.
He's kind of like Latrell Sprewell in 1999.
But that's actually an interesting analogy.
Haha. And I know you didn't have time to prep, Tarlin, so I got you in the corner right now.
You got me boxed.
Yeah,
I'm gonna fight my way out. No one, the Philly, he was bad rep in Philly, bad rep in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
But
also, they don't love him in Minnesota either.
They don't love him in Minnesota. But we always talk about culture. Mm. We run it back and we look at probably about business.
Yeah.
This is an unbelievable example of from an organization down, from the owner to Riley, Ulstra. They know
Coach Spo.
They know Heat players. So I almost want to think back to me a little bit of the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah.
Because didn't have the they had obviously some great players in Hall of Fame, but it wasn't about the talent, it was about the culture that they created around the bad boys.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is the closest thing we have to that.
I still think 99 Knicks, they lose in the finals. I think that basically says LeBron's team right now is the equivalent of San Antonio. It's not a terrible call.
Yeah, but
it's not a terrible call.
It was the challenge.
By the way, that show is available. You just go to runningitback.fm. It's also anywhere you listen to podcasts. The 1999 Knicks, strike shortened year, very bubble, caught lightning in a bottle. Latrell Sprewell after choking PJ Carlissimo. But anyway, so let's not give it all away, Tyler. So that's scenario one. We want to get through this quick. This is Spotify, Jazz. Come on, this is fast moving. Second scenario, Lakers-Celtics. And by the way, we are going to get one more show in before the actual playoffs start, but we wanted to get a little bit of sound in before we knew which scenario was which. This is pretty unlikely because the Celtics would have to run the table.
Come back from 3-1. Only Denver comes back from 3-1.
Or maybe, who knows? But if that did happen.
Tough to do. Listen, this is a toss-up for some of these games, but it's Lakers-Celtics. It's back 2009, 2010. You have to, if you're playing that, how can you not? And you've been thinking about Kobe all year, but how can you not think about Kobe? That's last time that the Lakers were relevant, and last time I can see
the grainy video of Dennis Johnson and Larry Bird in shorts that no grown man should actually wear, among other memories. But anyway, so we'll come back to that.
But also go back, and you really would have a spotlight on playoff Rondo. Playoff Rondo, Celtics, and playoff Rondo Lakers. So
anything is possible.
Thank you, Kevin Garnett.
So that one will be a fun. We'll do our follow-up show. I think we're going to try to get it out around Tuesday, right before the finals start. So that's on the horizon. But then, any other thoughts on those scenarios? You're feeling good, Lakers?
I'm feeling good.
LeBron's got a ton of gravitas now. I think his stuff about Breonna Taylor, which sadly it's sad that these things are happening, but they are using the platform to focus the attention consistently on the message that they do want to get out there, that we all want to get out there. So that is a favorable outcome. And LeBron also on the court that's also where we've talked about doing a GOAT show. If he somehow pulls it together, AD's really, really good.
Let's go to the other side of the ledger.
The other side of the ledger, you got Denver. Could they do it the third time? So these are these unlikely scenarios, but as we've learned in 2020, sometimes it's good to think about crazy scenarios, future possibilities is what you gotta just be ready for possible futures. So
Pause for a moment. Jamal Murray, just some of the shots that he makes and takes.
God.
The craziest things I've ever seen. And last night,
so fun.
He drove, he was fading left. He's right-handed and then put in a 10-foot left-handed jumper.
Right. So in terms of fun quotient, nothing against Laker fans, but if Denver does it again and they're in the finals,
I'd rather see them play the Heat.
They are America's team.
Oh, yeah.
They already are, even though Jokic is neither of them. Like he's from Murray's from Toronto. Jokic is from
Serbia.
Yeah, also known as overseas. I'm not sure exactly. We'll confirm exactly. But regardless, love that team. Been doing amazing stuff. And then more likely, however, they're not going to get there. But if they do, it'd be unbelievably cool.
And if it happens, it'll be reminiscent of bad finals like the Rockets Knicks. It's just finals.
Yeah, I prefer to talk about San Antonio against Detroit.
Okay.
Where, at least from Adam Silver's perspective, it's still, the pandemic helps because there's nothing else to watch. But the finals, actually, just from a pure basketball perspective and the fact that it's in Orlando, I would really like to see Denver play Miami, just in terms of how those teams, they've been the heroic lightning in a bottle bubble teams. And
they deserve
them,
it. They deserve
if it was an actual like AAU tournament,
which is basically what it is right now,
you would be pulling for that to happen. It's just pretty unlikely. But if it did, I think the basketball wise, that'd be really interesting. And just in terms of stories, nobody imagined that, because the Celtics, of the teams left, besides the Lakers, the Celtics are the one team that quite a few folks were saying they might come out of the East. And then that would be the last scenario, is Denver versus the Celtics. That feels less interesting. That feels like the least interesting finals, just in terms of competitive fire, because the Celtics, aside from Marcus Smart, they seem like they're just happy to be there, hanging out. Let's have a game. They're competing, but they don't seem to be like, I will do anything to win this game, which is the sense that you get that from the Heat, that kind of fire in the belly. And you definitely get that fire in the belly from LeBron. You also get it from Murray. Murray and Jokic have been unbelievable. No one would question that. So hopefully the Celtics make this a more likely scenario. It'd be great to see if the Celtics could come back and make that a competitive series. That one does feel like it. I don't think that's a gentleman's sweep. I would think Celtics at least win to force game 6, and then we'll see where that goes. But who knows, Tarlin? That's why they play the games.
That's why they play the games.
Any final thoughts, scenario-wise? Thank you for indulging me by going a little spontaneous on this. But any final thoughts?
I want Murray to go for 50 in his last game in the bubble.
Yeah.
As we defeat him.
Yeah.
I want the next hero, Tyler Hero, to step up for Miami, because I love the democratization of that team.
Yeah.
I, as a Laker fan, want the Celtics to step away.
Yeah.
And I want AD to get healthy.
Cool.
Other than that, I'm excited for the games.
Yeah.
And maybe I can get one of my daughters to sit next to me for more than a quarter to watch basketball.
Well, especially
as I said last night, these 7 minutes have gone on for like 45 minutes.
Right.
That's basketball.
Right. Which is why we need to get more running it back programming together to make this stuff more accessible to a broader audience, because that's really make it entertaining, make it kind of fun. And we'll see what happens. We'll also, assuming Miami makes it, we'll have to figure out what are the greatest songs with the word hero in them. There's plenty of stuff for us to be talking about. Tarlin, always a blast. Look forward to talking to you when we actually know who's playing in the finals. Thanks everyone for listening.